Hi, this is John with Estimator, and welcome to part 5 in our video series on this Estimator retreat model. Part 1, we discussed foundations. Part 2, framing. Part 3, the exterior finishes of the building. Part 4 was the interior finishes of the building. And now part 5 is dealing with landscaping and hardscapes. So, and really in the model, sample model that you get here, it's the last number of scenes here is all the final finishes on the for the landscaping and hardscaping. And we'll also be referring to the items database file that will come with this. And you can see all these, a lot of the landscaping and hardscaping type things that are in here. You do not have to use the items database that comes with this. You can simply add as you will, as you want to get quantity takeoffs and estimates for different various items. If they're in your items database, though, you can update your pricing in here and add new materials and things like that that'll be in the database, so you don't have to fill it out as you're going. But just giving you the heads up on that. All right, so the first scene that we have is the existing site. I've got construction fencing and some silt fencing in here, and those were discussed during the in the first video on foundations. So if you need to refer back to that, that is the first thing covered in there. So here's the existing site, and then so the first thing that I have in here, the next scene is the putting in the fill dirt. Okay, so our existing site, we had to come in and we've added some fill dirt in here, and we want to get a calculation for quantities of fill. We also have some gravel in here that we put down for this patio subslab area as well as for the driveway. So what we're going to do is open up Estimator. And we're going to select the topsoil in here, the fill dirt that we're bringing in. It'd be the first item that we come in. So here we are. I'm going to select the area here of the fill dirt, and that is on a layer that is called subgrade. And so what we do, if you notice, we've got to make sure we have a volume. I'm going to cut on my tray here for a second, and we want to go to Entity Info. And what I want to do when I select the subgrade here is you want to make sure there's a volume. Okay, when you get into doing some of these shapes, like if I was actually to double click on this, you're going to see how it's indented for the gravel and that sort of thing. So with this kind of stuff, you can easily when you're modeling this in Sketchup, it can easily not be a solid, and it will not report a volume. In this case, we're in good shape. It's reporting a volume. At any time, a great plugin to have, if I go under Tools, is this Solid Inspector 2 by TomTom. He's got Solid Inspector 1 and 2. 2 is just some improvements to 1, but Solid Inspector 2 will identify anything that is causing it to not report a volume to make it a solid, because otherwise it's not going to work with Estimator. It has to be a solid and has to report a volume. Okay, so we'll close back out with our dialog box. So I'm going to select our subgrade here, and I'm going to come into the description and start typing in fill dirt. And you can see I've got my fill dirt per cubic yard in my items database. So we're coming up with 133 cubic yards, or about $1,300 in fill dirt. All right, so that's fill. And then we've got this gravel in here. We have gravel in the base of the driveway, and we have gravel in the base of the in the stone base here. So let's start out with this gravel in the patio base. So in this case, I'm going to start typing in gravel. So here's my gravel material. So I'm putting that in there. And so in this case, I've got 12 tons of gravel that's going to be put into this patio subbase. And then the next thing I have is the driveway base stone that has to go in. So we're going to click on that, and that is the driveway base. And I'm going to start typing in driveway, and here's my base gravel for the driveway. So we're up to 19 tons for that. So that gets us, at this point, we have our fill dirt, we have our gravel in both of these locations. Okay, then I'm going to go into this patio prep. So you can see we've got a concrete patio. We're going to have flagstone on top of this, so we've got a concrete sub slab that goes in there. And we've got this block that's in here with these bracket bases, or bracket post bases. And so we're going to start out with the concrete itself. And once we select that, we'll go into our patio slab here. And in this case, we're going to use, let me start typing in concrete. And let's use our patio slab. So that's labor. Let's just go with our 3000 psi concrete in here. So we've got 8 cubic yards. All right, but now we also have to finish that. So let's add a item here for description. Start typing in concrete, and here's our concrete labor, the patio subslab. Okay, so now we've got that in there for the finishing. So our total, this total subslab is with these two items. You can see you get subtotals up in here. So we have $1,000 in the concrete itself and $485 to finish it. All right, so you can scroll through these at any times, and this plus button lets you add as many associated costs with that as you like. You could have actually put the gravel in there if you didn't want to model that sort of thing. You could have used the area of this slab to calculate your sub gravel. There's lots of different ways that you can do it. You don't have to model every single component. All right, so let's look at these. This is our pergola that's going in here. And we've got some CMU bases going in here. So I'm going to select one of these, and if I go to components, you'll see I've got 8 by 8 by 8 CMU, and I've got these post bases. So let's pick we'll knock out these post bases first. So I had already had those in when in the framing series. So these already had pricing assigned to them. So those were $50 each. And let's pick the 8 by 8 CMU. Now, also understand that Estimator is working off the current selection in Sketchup. So that's why we're getting a drop down with just these two items, because that's all we have in our current selection. So we go with the 8 by 8 by 8 CMU, and I'm just going to start typing in CMU, concrete masonry units. Here's my 8 by 8 by 8. And so we're coming in here, we have an attribute issue over in the database, because in this case, a lot of times I'll use CMU as a texture and use the attribute of square feet and then the multiplier in here. So what we need to do is go back into our items database. Perfect example to show you this. So we'll come down into our masonry category, and right here is our material. So instead of per square foot, what I'm going to do is change that into quantity, because we've actually modeled the individual block in this case. And I'm going to wipe out this and just say ×1, because we're just looking at quantities here. All right, and then you save it. And when you go back over into Estimator, you click on this sync with items database, and you can see here it came up item database sync results, showing you that you changed the pricing there. So that's good. All right, so now we've got 6 of those in here at $59. Okay, so we've also got sand and mortar that goes along with these. So let's do the next item. We're going to click plus, and I'm going to come in here and say mortar. And there's my mortar in here. And what that's doing is it's taking, assuming 45 block per bag of mortar, and of course it's rounding up. So we have 1 bag of mortar to do that. But once you total these up, for instance, if I selected multiple ones, we still probably only going to have 1 bag, 1 or 2 bags. So if we run a report on that, project tab, HTML report, you can see we've got 23 block and still only 1 bag of sand, because there's only 23 block. So obviously if you were only doing 1 column, you ended up having to buy 1 bag. All right, so let's go back into our components tab and go back into our 8 by 8 CMU. So now we've got 2 items in there. We've got a bag of mortar and we've got our 23 block. Well, now let's add in for our sand. So I can start typing into the description box. So let's start typing in sand, and I've got that in here on a per ton basis. And so what that's doing is it's saying that this is assuming 1,000 pounds of sand per 100 block. So it's just a simple string, and this multiplier is take the quantity of these, divide by 100, times it by 1,000, and divide by 2,000 for tons. And it's $35 per ton. So obviously, now in this case, I took the rounding off of there because you could maybe, in this case, we need less than a quarter ton. So, you know, you wouldn't be needing to have a whole truckload of sand out there for this block. So you can cut off the rounding feature, and that was done over in the items database. So over in the items database itself, you can see where it defaults to yes to rounding up. In this case, I just changed it to no. So it would not round up. All right, so there's our CMU. And we got everything allocated in this scene here with the concrete and the CMU and so forth. So the next scene is our flagstone. So when I select the flagstone, what I did in this case, you could do this either two different ways. You could make this a layer, which it's actually on a layer called flagstone. So you could use the area of this layer, or you could use the material. So if I go to materials tab, you can see I've got this pavers flagstone gray. And the materials tab is think of it as an area tool. So in this case, what if you wanted to change the material on there? Your client picks out a different product. You may be safer to use the layers tab in this case, because then if you change the material, it won't affect anything. But the argument to that is you may have this as a texture, that this is your flagstone A or flagstone B or whatever. When you save that in your template file, if you've got this material pricing assigned to this particular product and you texture an area with it, you're going to get your pricing. So there's two arguments of doing it to do it. In this case, let's just go ahead and use the materials here. So in this case, I'm going to type in flagstone, and there's my flagstone here, and it's using the attribute of square feet. So what it's doing is taking the square footage of this material, and I was careful to assign it only to the top surface. You don't want to just triple click on it and texture the whole thing with flagstone, because then you're going to have double entry for your data. So in this case, we're at $25 per square foot. We have 667 square feet at $16,000. So pretty hefty price tag there, but nice flagstone patio. All right, so then the next one we have is the driveway. I'm kind of doing this sequentially the way that I would do things out in the field as a builder or a landscaper, is step by step. And then you want to work to these items. You'd work your grass and your mulch and everything to these hard items. So in this case, I'll select the driveway. And we got different people price them different ways. You may price it per the square foot. You may go square yards. In this case, I'm going to go to this layer that is this site driveway asphalt, and I'm going to start typing in driveway and see what we have in our, so driveway per square foot subcontractor. So it's taking the square footage of this driveway, 507 square feet at $450 per square foot. So we have a paving job that's $2,200. Okay, so now that we've got that, the next step would be to go ahead and get our topsoil brought in and our mulch put in. Now, if I was to, I'm going to close Estimator for just a second here. If I was to double click on this topsoil, you can see I've got indentations for the mulch, because the mulch I'm going to do on a cubic yard basis. And then the grass, I'm just going to use the texture of the grass that you see here. So if I was to click back out of there, I do have a layer of topsoil here. So let's go back into Estimator. And what we're going to do is use the cubic yards of our topsoil for our budget. So I'm going to go over here to layers, topsoil, and start typing in topsoil and see what we have in our items database on a per cubic yard basis. So in this case, I need 78 cubic yards of topsoil. So that should get us good on that. The grass that you're seeing in here, I'm going to use using the grass texture. So I'm going to materials. In this case, I'm choosing this grass dark green. It's a Sketchup grass. Now we could seed or sod this. I'm just going to go ahead and say seed. So here's my prep and my seed. And we pay by the square footage at 30 cents a square foot in this case. So we've got 3,000 square feet, so it's $1,100 to seed the grass in this area. Mulch. So if I was to select the mulch, you see we got a couple different mulch beds going on. We've got the ones at the entry of the driveway. We got this little small circular one over here, and of course these flanking the driveway. all of them, once I assign a price to one of the mulch beds, the rest of them will follow suit. So we go site mulch. I start typing in my mulch. And in this case, I select that and let's see what we have. It's a cubic yardage basis at $50 per cubic yard. So there's 5 cubic yards in that bed. If I clicked on this one over in here, we have 1 cubic yard. It's rounding up. If I select them all by holding down Control, so we're up to still a total of 5 cubic yards. It was just rounding up. All right, so that's got our mulch. All right, let's get some more fun stuff. We start talking about the hardscapes in here, so, or the outside structures. So here's our pergola that we have in here. So in this case, I've got the pergola itself. So if I go to Components, and here's my pergola, we'll see if I've got one in my items database. So I've got a pergola timber frame kit and labor. So let's see what we have. If I go to the frame kit, it's $1,500, and I'm going to hit the plus button up in here, and I'm going to type in the same pergola again to get our labor in there. So here's our labor, which is another $1,500. So that pergola is up to $3 grand. And of course, I just made up these numbers. It's going to be whatever it is for you on your project. All right, so now we have, we've also got the stone here. Now, we did stone in the previous exterior finishes video, so you might want to check that out. And the way that was done is it was taking the square footage of the material for this stone is how we were pricing things. So if I was to use materials, and this color A05 just happened to be the name of that texture, the stone veneer, see we've already got a price in there. So this back section behind the kitchen, and then these columns. So we've already got our stone budget done. All right, so now let's take a closer look at this outside kitchen. Okay, so we have some, this is all one component. So if we go to the Components tab, you're going to see inside there the drop down, we got quite a few things going in there. I've got the outdoor kitchen itself, which would be the kitchen cabinets. We've got this under counter fridge, and we've got a grill, that 48-inch grill. And we have a kitchen faucet, and we have a kitchen sink. All right, I'm just going to start down here at the bottom of the list and click on this sink. Start typing in sink, see what we have. We got the indoor kitchen sink. We have this outdoor kitchen sink. I'm going to click on that. So we have our $185 sink with our sales tax. And again, these are all derived from the items database. And again, you do not have to use the items database. As long as you have a description in there, you don't have to even use the cost codes. If you have a description, it's going to report by the description in alphabetical order. If you have an item code, it's going to report by that. If you have a cost code, it's going to categorize it by your cost code. So just bear in mind, you can go through and build a simple estimate in SketchUp without having to do anything with the items databases if you don't want to. All right, so we've done the sink. I'm going to keep down from the bottom up here. We've got this kitchen faucet. So I'm going to start typing in faucet. And there is my outdoor kitchen faucet right here. Okay, so that's our sink and our faucet. And then continuing on up in our order of things, I've got a 48-inch grill. So I'm going to start typing in grill. And there's my 48-inch gas grill. All right, and continuing on in our list of components that we have in here, I'm not worried about all these random groups and components. These are all parts of that cabinet that I downloaded. So in this case, we'll get this under counter refrigerator, and I'm going to start typing in refrigerator, and here's our outdoor under counter refrigerator. Click on that, and we have our, let's see what else we have. We have the refrigerator, we've done the grill, we've done the actual cabinetry themselves, outdoor kitchen. So we've got cabinets and countertop there. So I'm going to start typing in outdoor kitchen, see what I have in there. There's outdoor kitchen cabinets. And if you had a quote, you could put the quote in there. I just have a $2,000 in there for a quote for the cabinetry outside. So that takes care of the pergola. Now we've got some other hardscape items. I've got this fire pit, this cool curved custom bench. We got some Adirondack chairs. We've got this picnic table. And again, you may not have these in your bid if you're working on you know, a quote for just doing the hardscapes. You wouldn't have to fool with the furnishings and so forth. So, all right, so now that we've got our picnic table, we've got these Adirondack chairs, we've got this Necessaries bluestone fire ring with a grate, we've got this curved bench. So if you had those in your items database, you could go ahead and add pricing to that. So I'm going to Control D again, which is just my shortcut for the dialog box. I'm going to open up Estimator, and I'm going to select on each of these things and see what we can do here. We got our components. There's our curved bench. I'll start typing in curved bench, and there it is. Now, bear in mind, we've just assigned that in there. If I saved this component, this curved bench, for use in a future model and saved it to my library, all this data is going to be saved with it. So the next time I'm in a model and I import this curved bench or this fire pit, all the pricing data is going to be coming in there, and you can update it if you need to, but at least you're not having to do this every single time. So here's our fire pit, and I'm going to start typing in fire pit. So I've got this Necessaries bluestone fire pit, and that is $650. We've got these Adirondack chairs. So let's see, Adirondack, there it is, Adirondack chair. And those are $165 each. Now that I've done it once, you'll see it's assigned it already to there. And we've got our picnic table. And let's start typing in picnic. Here we go. And again, remember, now that we've done this once, save it to your library and you will never have to enter it again, other than just updating your pricing. So that takes care of some of the hardscaping elements there. So the next thing is our plants and trees. All right, so we got a lot of stuff going on in here. And what I'm going to do is so I'm going to select one of these trees to start with. And in this case, if I go to components, it's a cypress tree. And so what I'm going to do here is, in my items database, I've got a cypress tree, but you could actually just start putting in your cost information and then save this as a component to your library. Okay. So in this case, we've got, and I can show you if we take right click on this with TomTom's selection toys, you could come in there and choose, and making sure you've got them all covered here. If I select them all, so selecting all will show up that we've got $1,400 in cypress trees. Okay. So let's kind of just move our way in. And now I've got an inspector that's built into Estimator now. So if you forgot to assign a price to something, we'll be able to identify that at the end of this video using the inspector. So we got stepping stones. We got 3 sections of these stepping stones, and I'm just going to say that those are off of a pallet. So we got 3 pallets in here. So I have stepping stone section, and we pay for those by the pallet. I don't know exactly how many are on there, but I'm just going to assume that that's 1 pallet. So we've got a pallet there. So we've got total, if I hold down Control and select these other 2, you can see we've got $900 in our stepping stones. All right, so in this case, now we have this, we're still in Components tab. We've got this plant number 2. I'm going to right click on it, select all the instances of it. So we got quite a few of those in there. Now I've got it in my items database. This is just called plant 2, but you can name it whatever you want to name it. So I'll start typing in plant 2, and those are $75 each. And I've got these bollard lamps, so I've got a few of those. If I select all those instances, so I've got what, 4 of them. Okay, so we'll start typing in bollard, and there's our bollard lamps. Okay. Moving on, we got some other, this one's plant 1. I'm going to see how many of those we have. Got quite a few of those, 24 of those. So I'm going to start typing in plant 1. So there's all of those plants. And then we've got these guys here. If I right click on that, so we have flowering plant number 1. So I'm going to start typing in flowering. I don't know if so I've worded it the same way that's over in the items database. Okay. So that's $75 each for all of those. Now, good idea as you're doing this to save. You definitely want to save often, otherwise you can lose a lot of your hard work. All right, so we've got all the flowering shrubs. Looks like we've got these, I think we have most of the plant material taken care of. It looks like we have some smaller guys in here. So let's see what this one is. So plant 3, how many of those do we have? Okay, so we've got 5 of those of plant 3. All right, so that takes care of those. Now we have some trees out here, and that one is a tree, same as this one. So these are the same size trees. So we'll select both of those. And again, since I'm keeping this simple, I only have the one tree like that that's in here other than the cypress tree. Okay, so that's those 2 trees. So that looks like we've got pretty much everything in here. So I've got a scene here that's just called landscaping. So now what we can do is select, oh, we've got this mailbox out here. Let's see if we've got a mailbox to put in here. So well, we'll check that one out and put a price to it. So if I go to mailbox kit, there it is, our mailbox kit. And your cost codes will all be in there. So now we can select everything that we see here. And so you can see here we've got $51,000 worth of landscaping and hardscaping in here. If I run over to the project tab and hit the HTML report, we can get a sense for what all we have in here. So we've got our mortar and sand and our block. We've got our fill dirt, we have our topsoil, we have gravel, we have these post bases, we have our slab finishing and material for that. We've got our stone veneer, we have all of our plant material and so forth. We have our fire pit, our driveway base, we have flagstone, our stepping stones, picnic table, the chairs, bollard lamps, curved bench, pergola, mailbox, all of our outdoor kitchens and so forth. So that gets us our total. Now, just we've also discussed in previous videos, down at the bottom here, you've got quotes and margin. So the purpose of that is quotes could be anything you want to put in there. Maybe it's a dumpster or a portable toilet or insurance, anything that you're not modeling. You can enter in as a quote in the quotes tab. And then when you're ready to go, you can click on the margin tab to add your margin in there for your final report. And it's a margin, not a markup. So this is a percentage of the total cost. Okay, so at 20%, it would be taking the total cost divided by 0.8 to derive that amount. All right, so now to show you the inspector feature that we have. So we've got everything selected right now. I'm just going to close Estimator for a second. If you go up to extensions and Estimator, inspection is new. You click on that, and what it's doing, you see the hourglass go in there. It's going to hide everything that has cost associated with it or estimator data associated with it. You don't have to add cost in there. You might just be doing a quantity takeoff. So as long as you got information in there. So if I'm zooming up a little closer, I've got a couple things that we've got some accessories that I'm not worried about. We got a couple of little stepping stones over here that I'd just say came off of that, off those pallets. We've got these stone tops to these columns. So we could go in and add a price for that. But the point is, you can see here that if we had missed a plant or missed a tree or something like that, it would have shown up so we can go back and add our pricing to it. So the inspector is really an important feature. So I'm going to hit escape, and what escape's going to do is bring it all back where we started. Okay, so this is what the final house and landscaping looks like. So I hope you got something out of this video, and we'll have a summary to this project in the next video. And if you want to go back and see these others with the foundation or the framing or anything like that, please check out the other videos. Thank you.